This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc, as you know, we have partnered up with the Detroit Sports Commission. And guess what, guys? Since 2001, the Detroit Sports Commission has applied its expert touch to marketing and to selling in the Metro Detroit area as a marquee destination for regional, national, and even international amateur sporting events. And through the Detroit Sports Commission's help, these events have attracted thousands of visitors and pumped millions of dollars into our local economy. It is why Detroit is now not only the place where champions are made, but also the place where championships are played. So, to find out more about the Detroit Sports Commission and all of the events they're bringing to our region, follow the DSC on Twitter and on Instagram at DET Sports, and check out their website at DetroitSports.org. And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Jerome Chirco, alongside my usual sidekick and partner in crime, that is the Doc from Doc and Jack, John Charles Macaroon. John, how's it going?
Vito, I got to open this podcast by asking a question. I'm sitting here kind of feeling like a hypocrite. You want to know why? Well, when you talk about the Detroit Tigers, everybody wanted the rebuild. Everybody wanted the destruction to happen of this team because of the fact they were nowhere near World Series caliber. Okay, so now a bunch of young cats are pitching, a bunch of young cats are playing for the Detroit Tigers, and guess what? I can't watch it.
It's horrible to watch right now,
It's tough to watch, Vito. It's really challenging to sit and watch a 9-inning game, not because of the fact that there's a bunch of young players, but because of the fact that the way the games are being played, a lot of errors, a lot of mental mistakes, the pitchers, the starting pitchers for the Detroit Tigers are getting rocked game in and game out. So for me, I'm basically a passive bystander at this point, and I'm watching basically only on Twitter.
How about Miles J? Monday night gets bombed. And here's this young dude who has some promise, but has to face the Indians of all teams. Guess how many games they won in a row coming into Tuesday, into this recording of our podcast, Doc?
19 games.
19, almost 20. And you got to believe, facing the Tigers, they're salivating at the mouth over this matchup. It's a tasty matchup, and they're thinking right now, well, we're going to win 20 straight for sure, playing the Tigers, the lowly Tigers, who have lost 9 of their last 11 games. That is darn bad. It is how lowly the Tigers have become. A team that had promise, some sort of promise coming into the season. And I think, as I said on last week's podcast, and I will reiterate it right now, the Tigers have kind of become the laughingstock of the American League. Haven't they, Doc?
It's unbelievable, Vito. In terms of where the Detroit Tigers are at this point in the season, I believe 23 games under 500. It looks a little bit rough, but are we, as a fan, should I be complaining because of the fact that of the way this team is performing? I mean, wouldn't you expect, though, when you have a bunch of young kids coming up? The part, though, that's frustrating for a lot of people is, why the heck did they call back Tyler Collins to this team? Many people are wondering, like, okay, bring up every young cat that hasn't been up here yet. Tyler Collins, we've seen that act before. We all thought that. I think some people tweeted us, wait a minute, he wasn't DFA'd? He was DFA'd, but unfortunately, nobody picked him up on waivers, and here he is playing for the Detroit Tigers against the Cleveland Indians, and everyone's just kind of watching going, ooh. And it is reflective by what you see at Comerica Park. The crowds have been atrocious, but they only have a couple wins in the entire month of September. They're probably going to be a team with around mid-90s losses this year. And we have to sit and be patient because next season we're looking at the same thing with a team that is going to be very young with a bunch of prospects. But am I being a hypocrite because I'm not watching, even though I called for the rebuild 2 years ago? I can't watch. See, for me, I just want to watch decent baseball. I can watch losing baseball. I'm a fanatic. I can watch, any team that plays in Detroit. But to watch a team that's unfundamentally sound, it's irritating. And to see the level of errors, you see a lot of. I mean, look at Monday's game. You have Jacoby Jones basically run in front of Nick Castellanos in the outfield. It looks sloppy. The play on the diamond is atrocious. So for me, what I do is the first couple innings, I peek at our Twitter page. I see if the fans are interested. But you said it before we started. The interest level right now with the Detroit Tigers is pretty low. And what are we forced to talk about? Prospects? I'm not really into all that. Are you?
A little bit here and there, but let's talk about this really quick, how bad they actually are. The run differential is American League worst, negative 111.
Wow, so teams have outscored the Detroit Tigers by 111 runs.
By that many. And the White Sox actually, by 3 runs, are better in that run differential this season as a ball club. And the White Sox are in dead last in the American League Central. And guess what? The White Sox are the worst team record-wise in the American League, but at this point are only 3 games behind the Tigers for 4th place in the American League Central. That's how dismal and stinky the Tigers have become and truly are right now. A team that is 16-83. Now, if I do my math right, they've played in 143 games, right? Which means they have 19 more games to go to, have a full season played. 162 games in the regular season is how many they play each season. They are 19 away from that amount of games played, a full season. And you could say easily with 19 games to go, Doc, they're going to lose 90-plus games. That's what I'm trying to say here, Doc. They are going to lose 90-plus games. Think about it. So they could lose 13 out of those 19 games, go 6-13, let's say. And so 13 more losses means they're going to lose 96. I think they're going to lose 95. I'm going to say 95. Now, I guess we can play a game of Big Vito's over-under really quick here, Doc. Over or under 95 losses by the Tigers this season?
Under. I've been maybe 92, 93. Maybe at the end of the year, they sometimes do perform well. You never know. Maybe in a week's time, some of these players actually perform. The tough part is nobody's performing. None of these prospects. Jimenez looked a little better in his last performance. Jay, comes out after the game when he's interviewed, and he says, well, I followed the routine. It just didn't go my way. No shit, it didn't go your way. It went 7. You gave up 7 runs. It didn't
what are you going to say? You got to say something, right? What do you say, Doc?
He sounds just like Brad Ausmus. It was unbelievable.
Ausmus has no room or rhyme or reason for it because he's a veteran now manager who's a lot older than Miles J. So Miles J can make the mistake of saying something that maybe isn't the best thing to say. But Ausmus, I get your point.
It sounds like you're giving me a pass. You're not blaming me for not watching a whole heck of a lot of Detroit Tigers baseball. It is a little bit challenging, but I give credit. There's a lot of fans in Detroit that read a lot of things about prospects. They're wondering what's going on, and I'm like, wow. Once I start reading about prospects, my eyes glaze over because really, you can, give me the numbers. You can tell me what this guy has. I guess I like their strengths and weaknesses, what potentially they could bring to the table, maybe where they rank in terms of the organization, but really, it's a crapshoot. Nobody really knows. And the question I want to always ask people is this prospect going to come up and do some things? Because I've been burned by Nick Castellanos. He's a guy that, he has power in his bat. He's now a guy basically that doesn't have a defined position. They're throwing him out there in right field. And you got a guy that was highly touted in the organization. And by all accounts, he's part of the problem and not yet part of the solution. And I don't know if this experiment's going to work out there in right field, but they're sure as hell going to give it a try. So when you look at the Detroit Tigers, I'm thankful you give me a pass. The end of the season's coming. We're still going to podcast. We're still going to start looking at some players, but at the same time, to give a little bit of a directional change in the podcast, we will also break into and talk about other clubs and other things going on well in terms of what we see across Major League Baseball. So I want to ask you, how weird was it for you to see Justin Verlander pitching for Houston? I watched a lot of it, and he was must-see JV, his first performance with Houston, on the road versus Seattle. He looked good, but I'm not going to lie. It was very weird to see Kate Upton with that Houston hat, to see Justin Verlander, wearing another team's uniform. It was, at that point, when I saw it, I was watching it, I said to myself, wow, this is the visual signal, the visual cue that it's over. And to see him pitch for another team while everybody wanted him gone, myself included, it was still kind of tough to see.
It was tough to adjust to take as a lifelong Tigers fan who watched Justin Verlander throw that first no-hitter for the Tigers since 1984. Jack Morris did it last before Verlander's no-no in 2007. And remember, I wrote that tear-jerking piece I know you made fun of on Twitter. And it was for Detroit Athletic Company about my experiences that night.
I was actually going to bring that up.
Yeah, June 12th, 2007. I had a Little League baseball game, and I was just glowing and everything. And, hey, the waterworks happened. They did commence eventually, not until after the game, but they did. And, yeah, I broke down emotionally, Doc. I mean, come on, give my 14-year-old self a little break there, because I was only 14 years old.
Why did you cry? It was so weird to read because it was a nice piece, very well written. I'm proud of you. You can definitely check out Vito's work across Metro Detroit, either at the Free Press, the Detroit Athletic Company, all over Metro Detroit. He's got his hand in a lot of things via the written platform. But at the same time, when those things happened, like no-hitters or quality things, it's like a fist pump. You get excited, not crying. What do you think made you start crying?
I think because the emotions they ran over me. They took control of my body and just ran through my body, and I couldn't hold them back, the waterworks anymore. No! And it wasn't an oh no moment for me, but like I said in the piece for Detroit Athletic Company, another plug for it, well, you know what? I felt like I wasn't ashamed of it, though, at the very end of the day. I felt kind of embarrassed at first, but then I realized I should not be ashamed of this. I just witnessed Tigers history, and who would have known that JV at that point would have thrown a no-no? That was just the beginning. A must-see JV. Officially looking back at it now, reflecting on it, that was the beginning, the very, very beginning, a must-see Justin Verlander. We didn't know that at that time, so for me, as a lifelong Tigers fan that saw a lot of losing prior to 06 and really losing every single year and every single game, it felt like almost, well, I was going to let the emotions just take over me, and I had to cry. It was bound to happen, and I was not ashamed whatsoever after reflecting on the significance of that very no-no thrown by JV in 2007.
Okay, Vito, it's nice you were 14, so you do get a little bit of a pass, but to write that, I almost started crying when I started reading it.
I would have loved if you would have cried and would have sent me a video or a photo of you with the waterworks having started.
I already forgot. What did I say to you when I started teasing you on Twitter?
I don't know. You made fun of me. I know you had to get a little dig in about my emotions taking over me.
Yeah, it was funny, dude. It was quite the experience. But look, when we start looking at what we're going to talk about, a lot of it's going to be memories. I mean, in terms of what we saw with the Detroit Tigers the past 10 years, what we think is going to happen in the future. But the Tigers are limping along to the finish line. But did you hear the news earlier on Tuesday? The thinking is that when people are asking Al Avila regarding a key player potentially for next year, they're asking, are you going to extend or pick up the option for, infielder Ian Kinsler? The rumor is they're going to pick up the option, pay him the $10 million, but actively shop him in the offseason. And so I just wanted to get your sense. Do you think that Ian Kinsler will be a member of the 2018 Tigers roster? I do give him credit that they're probably going to pick up the option, but in terms of looking at Ian Kinsler's numbers, they're pretty down all across the board this year. So I don't know how feasible it's going to be to try and move Ian Kinsler.
I think they might pick up the option instead of buying him out for $5 million, because they might view him as a veteran stopgap, a player that they won't sign on the open market this offseason, but they can keep a player like that and have a player on their team like that in the form of Ian Kinsler by simply picking up that contract option, which isn't hugely outlandish at $10 million. Too much for a guy that hasn't produced this year nearly enough at the plate on a consistent basis. But I still think at the end of the day, he is viewed as that veteran stopgap at second base for the Tigers next season, until they really find a long-term solution at the position, or a guy that's readily ready to play and do it full-time at second base. I think he is the guy there next year at least. And they pick up the option, and then maybe they do end up dealing him, because if he has some value going into the non-waiver trade deadline next July 31, well, then you can trade him and flip him for a prospect or two that can be solid prospects, at least middle-tier prospects. So that's probably how Al Avila and the Tigers front office brass right now are viewing the situation with Ian Kinsler. And I really think, Doc, looking at it right now from the outside, I think it would be the right direction for the Tigers to go in by picking up the option of Ian Kinsler for next year.
Yeah, I can agree that it probably will be a good move, because if you do keep him, if he is on the roster, then he could be that veteran leader, a guy that many of the young talent can look up to. And there are probably much worse options in terms of a guy that you could look up to. So if you look up to Ian Kinsler and any of these infielders that they got, any of the plethora of prospects, when they learn from Ian Kinsler, if they learn even 40% of what he knows in terms of what he's been able to accomplish in his career, he has provided decent output for the Detroit Tigers. So you can't really blame him, in terms of, this bad year. It's just now what we got to look for, though, is it cost effective to drop $10 million on him? But, I mean, you still have an opportunity to pay him and then see if there's going to be a market for him out there across Major League Baseball. But that's one of the only things that's been positive to talk about, other than Miggy coming back, swinging a little bit better stick in terms of his comeback from the suspension. But it does highlight, though, when Miguel Cabrera doesn't perform, this team is going to be horrible.
Oh, yeah. Going to be garbage.
It was
Complete
tough.
garbage.
It was tough. It was nice to give him a week off from the suspension. He came back, got a home run in his first at-bat. But that series versus Toronto, after getting a victory, you lose 2 of 3. You're right now going to be in the midst of a series where you're probably going to be dominated by Cleveland. So it's pretty tough across Major League Baseball landscape. But you have a guest.
Yes, I
that
do.
You have on the line that we'll talk about one of the teams that's also floundering. Losers, I believe, of 16 of 17 Major League Baseball games. The Dodgers were once thought of as being an elite Major League Baseball franchise in 2017, thought of maybe as one of the best teams ever, but after that 15-game swing where they won a bunch of games, they've lost. They've kind of hit a major skid. Who's the guest that you're going to bring on to talk about these L.A. Dodgers?
Eric Steven of the Dodgers SB Nation blog, True Blue L.A., will be joining me just after this quick commercial break. And Doc, as you know, our newest sponsor is the Eastside Youth Sports Foundation. And if there is one thing that we do know, Doc, it is that Detroit fans really love their sports. That's why you are listening. Whether you're an armchair jock, GM, or an all-star player, you can help the next generation get into the game, too. The Eastside Youth Sports Foundation provides opportunities for boys and girls alike to experience a huge variety of sports, including baseball, football, yoga, and hockey. Because remember, kids who play together stay together, making new friends, learning teamwork, and making better choices. Girls and boys who are actively engaged in sports do better in school, live healthier lifestyles, and make better choices. So now you may be wondering, how can I help? Well, if you would like to help, you can support the Eastside Youth Sports Foundation in its upcoming Try Sports for Free Day. September 23rd is the date for the Try Sports for Free Day. Sign up your son or daughter, volunteer, or make a donation. Last year, the foundation's Try Sports for Free Day introduced nearly 200 kids to new activities. Now, you can learn more about the Eastside Youth Sports Foundation at esysf.com. That website, once again, is esysf.com. And now joining me via Vito's VIP line is Mr. Eric Steven of the LA Dodgers SB Nation blog, True Blue LA. Eric, how's it going?
Things have been better in Dodgerland of late. They seem to not. They're kind of getting in their own way right now. They've lost 11 straight, the longest losing streak in baseball this year, and yet somehow still have the best record in baseball. This is the most perplexing team I've ever covered.
What a season from the Dodgers, with that being said, Eric. And first and foremost, what has been the reason, or what have been the reasons behind the Dodgers' 11-game losing streak?
Well, and so, yeah, and it's not just 11, too. It's they had a 5-game losing streak before that, so they've lost 16 out of 17. They're, it's been, I think, a pretty much a team-wide effort. Their ERA during the streak, during this 17-game stretch, is 5.99. The starters and relievers have been pretty bad overall, and then the offense is hitting. It's not hitting as well either. They're averaging just right around 2.5 runs a game. So it's been kind of a community effort. It seems weird because they can't match things up. So last night was a weird night. They had almost a 4-hour rain delay in San Francisco. They didn't start that game until 10:50 local time. It didn't end until after 2 a.m. and they lost 8-6. So they scored 6 runs. You would think that would be enough to win a game, but the pitching just didn't match up. And that's how it's kind of been. Last week they lost all 7 games at home. They got good pitching against the Diamondbacks, but only scored 2 runs in 3 games. They got bad pitching against the Rockies and got swept in 4 games. So things just aren't lining up for them. They really are in desperate need of a win. And even Kershaw only pitched 3 2/3. It was in his last start against the Rockies. So even Kershaw's not immune to this. So it's been pretty much from top to bottom the entire team. It's hard to single out, 1 or 2 players. It's been like a 25-man, or even with September rosters even more. It's been a team-wide effort.
It's been club-wide. Absolutely. Eric Steven of True Blue LA, the SB Nation Dodgers blog, on with me, courtesy of Vito's VIP line. And Eric, you can take Kershaw into account. Also, Yu Darvish hasn't been the greatest acquisition. Alex Wood of late hasn't been very effective either. And how worrisome is it that those guys won't be effective come October for the Dodgers too?
When it all comes down to it, those are really the two worries for me. Like, Darvish and Wood. It's hard to sit here and say, look, they still have the best record in baseball, but it is sort of a fact still. So they play the Nationals this week, and they only have a 3-game lead in the loss column over the Nationals. So they're still jostling for that sort of top seed in the playoffs. And but I think at this point the Dodgers just need a win to sort of break out of their sort of doldrums here, because they're just not playing well. They have to obviously play well in October to win, but they're showing no signs of that right now. It's not saying they can't do it, because there's still 3 weeks of the season left. But you're right. The concerns are Darvish. Basically, what's happening with Darvish? The stuff is there, which is a little which is good, but he had Tommy John surgery that knocked him out for all of 2015 and part of 2016. He's doing some things mechanically, I think, to protect that elbow, just sort of subconsciously, and his arm slot's a little weird. So what they tried to do is fix his delivery. And when they started this, this was the let's get ready for October mode. We're clearly going to be in the playoffs, all this stuff, and so they had sort of time to do this. But now he's still sort of going through those changes, and he's not been getting the results. It's kind of a weird thing that after each start, Dave Roberts says, well, he's getting soft contact, and the results just aren't there. But at some point, you have to see results, and they haven't seen that yet. So there's still hope he can turn it around, but he's sort of trying to fix his delivery, getting more to that pre-surgery mode. He says he's getting closer. We'll see, because they definitely need him to be the number 2 guy in October. Alex Wood has had a fantastic season. His numbers in the second half, he was a big ground ball guy in the first half before the All-Star break, about 63%. It's down to about 45% after the break, and he's giving up more home runs. He says he's fixed some things mechanically in his delivery now. It's just a matter of getting the command. Again, it's a wait-and-see thing with him, because when his stuff is on, he's keeping the ball down. He's very effective. So, and then you throw those guys in with Kershaw and Rich Hill. That's a pretty solid 4-man staff. But this is assuming everything is right. And right now, everything is not right with those two. But so of the, as bad as they're playing right now, I think things can turn around offensively and mostly in the bullpen. But, the two big concerns are Wood and Darvish going into the playoffs. So those are the things that sort of have to get right over these last 3 weeks.
Yeah, as you said, Eric, everything is not right now in Dodger land. And you had mentioned you can see it happening where things do get righted. They right the ship as a whole. But what is the level of concern right now among the Dodgers fan base as well, Eric, with this team righting the ship before the postseason does occur? Yeah,
we're like DEFCON 10 right now, I would imagine, just seeing the, Twitter mentions and comments and things like that. When the losing streak was, when they lost 5 straight, and then maybe it was 7 out of 8, it was, I thought some of the sky is falling stuff was premature, but at this point, they're in such a free fall. People are expecting them to just get swept out, and the season's over, that kind of stuff. And at this point, it's hard to blame people, because the losing has gotten so bad. They've lost 11 straight, like I said, and 16 out of 17, and they're just, things are not good right now. Even the players like Justin Turner on Sunday said, look, we have the best record in baseball, but we're playing like the worst team in baseball right now. So, the players know it. They're frustrated. I think, and then it's sort of spilled over to the fan base. Pedro Baez got booed before he even threw a pitch the other night coming into a home game, which is weird. Curtis Granderson has drawn the ire of several Dodgers fans on the internet, and rightfully so. He hasn't played well. He's 8 for 71 or 8 for 72 or something since coming over in the trade. So it's been bad. He has a better track record now. He's not a 100 hitter or whatever he's shown, but he has to play better. Yasmani Grandal hasn't played very well. Austin Barnes starting to get more playing time. A lot of guys are getting singled out here, but like I said, it's a team-wide effort. But the panic is definitely there among Dodger fans, and I think last night it felt like a game that they could have just sort of captured. It was a weird game. It ended after 2 a.m., but even that, and then they ended up losing anyway. So now it's like a lot of fans stayed up late to just watch them lose again. So it just became even more frustrating.
That is something how the fans have gone from one extreme to the next, where everybody thought, and especially I know the Dodgers fan base, that they were bound to win it all. This was their year for sure. And now I know more and more of them are thinking, well, let's just get a win. And can we even get a win? I guess that's the sad state of affairs in Dodgerland. But, I mean, what would you say now regarding the fan base once again? Do you think this Dodgers fan base is confident that this club can make a long and deep run into the Fall Classic and win it all this year at this point?
From what I've seen, I would say that the fan base is not confident at all right now. They're hoping there's hope there, that they can turn things around. But I think the overwhelming tide right now is on the side of the way they're playing. They're just gonna however they make the playoffs, they're likely going to win the division. They're up like 9 with 18 games left, so that's probably going to happen. But no matter how they get into the playoffs, it looks like people are mostly expecting a first round exit. I mean, in National League Division Series, whether they play like the Diamondbacks, the Cubs, or like the Rockies or whatever. So I would say right now the expectation is they're not going to win, but with a faint degree of hope that they could possibly turn things around. But like I said, they'd have to show a lot in these last 3 weeks to sort of turn that tide.
Yeah, something, Eric, how the fan base has flip-flopped so mightily. And there are a lot of good teams in the NL. I believe it's a stronger league. And by a large margin right now with all the great teams you have in the NL, including the D-backs and Rockies in the Dodgers division, along with the Cubbies. The Brewers have been great this year, a great story. Also the Nationals, obviously, who I see as a team that if they, that could make a run at least and is due to win, just as the Dodgers are. But from your standpoint, from watching all of Major League Baseball this year, and specifically the National League, who do you believe is the favorite to win it all out of the National League at this point?
I would probably say the Nationals. I think that like a Dodgers Nationals matchup, like in the NLCS, if that's in the cards, that would be a fantastic series. I mean, you have if everything's right. Let's take these teams at their best, right? Like you have two really solid pitching staffs. You got Scherzer, Strasburg, and Gio Gonzalez for the Nationals. You got Kershaw, Darvish, and then Wood, Hill for the Dodgers. And you have two solid bullpens. The Nationals bullpen was terrible earlier in the year. They addressed that with Doolittle, Madsen, and Kinsler, and they've been super effective. The Nationals offense, I think, is better than the Dodgers, top to bottom. Just great hitters up and down. Dodgers offense is really good too. Obviously, haven't shown it of late, but just what a tremendous matchup that would be. The Diamondbacks pose matchup problems as well. Again, sort of the same thing. This is a solid 3-man pitching staff: Greinke, Robbie Ray, and say Zach Godley, and then a really solid offense. JD Martinez has been just going crazy since they traded for him. Really adds a lot of depth to their lineup. And then you really can't discount the Cubs, even though they've had a real super up and down year. But I would say, the Nationals for me are sort of the favorites and the team that the Dodgers would have the biggest matchup problem against. They would also match up poorly against the Diamondbacks, as we've seen in the last few weeks. But I would really like to see a rematch. Last year they played in the National League Division Series, and it was a crazy, fun, 5-game series. I think a National League Championship Series would be a really great matchup.
And the big-time success of Robbie Ray and JD Martinez in Arizona is just pissing off Tigers fans left and right, Eric, because they're doing so darn well, and we got to watch it from afar as Tigers fans doing this podcast week in, week out. And, I mean, JD Martinez is mashing the baseball for the D-backs. And how big of a momentum booster has he provided, you think, to that D-backs franchise?
Well, I mean, you just look at it so they all year they've been sort of in this dogfight with the Rockies. They were pretty much since the beginning of the year. It was those two teams at the top. The Dodgers took a little bit to get to the first place, and then they just completely took over the division. So for the most of the year, it was Diamondbacks and Rockies jostling for that who's going to host the wild card game sort of thing. The Brewers and Cardinals have sort of weaseled their way into that second spot, but the Diamondbacks really, since they got JD Martinez, they struggled for a little bit here just after the All-Star break, but really the last month and a half, they've been outstanding and really have taken over that first wild card spot. So it's pretty clear they're going to host the NL wild card game. So I think what JD Martinez has brought to them I mean, he has more home runs with the Diamondbacks than he did with the Tigers, and he was having a good season with the Tigers. So, like, I think if I saw this correctly, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I believe only Giancarlo Stanton has a higher slugging percentage this year, and he's been obviously insane. So, JD Martinez has been great. I mean, we knew going in he was going to be a lefty masher. Like, they traded almost nobody to get him. I mean, he was just like a poo-poo platter of prospects. So it was as good of an in-season pickup as you're going to get for the Diamondbacks. And what a boost he provides to their lineup. Like I said, it was already a good lineup. You have Goldschmidt in the middle, AJ Pollock, Jake Lamb, and then you add him into the middle there, and it really did lengthen their lineup, and it just makes them even more formidable. So I think he was as impactful as of a trade pickup as anyone this year.
Yeah, it's hard to hear the fact from you, Eric, too, that the prospect package the Tigers got for JD Martinez wasn't a great net of prospects. Because, I mean, it was tough to look at the prospect package. Joel Lugo is your top prospect in that deal, the centerpiece, and he's not good enough, even close to good enough to be the top prospect in a deal for a guy like JD Martinez, who was slugging the heck out of the ball, had an OPS above 1,000 with the Tigers this year, and continues to slug the heck out of the ball with the D-backs in the desert. And really quick, speaking of my Tigers, as this is Tigers talk, what can the Tigers, you think, take from the playbook of the Dodgers, try to replicate in terms of what the Dodgers have done to have a sustained model of success? What can the Tigers take from that to build their own club that can, have that sustained success over, 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think it sort of already started for them with the Verlander trade. They got a pretty good package from the Astros, it seemed, just from afar. And then obviously, I don't know if Justin Upton would have opted out. I think he would have, just given how good of a year he was having. But I think for them to sort of jump on the chance to sort of like get rid of that contract, not that he's a bad player, but I think it really just set them up as with a blank slate going forward. So I think now you're looking to build depth. I think back to JD Martinez for a second. I think one of the things the Dodgers have done building depth, they've really gone for multi-positional guys, athletic guys, and I think with JD Martinez, probably the reason he wasn't as sought after is because the defense, he's a corner guy, can't really do much else, not very good defensively. So I think that sort of those sort of limited guys who can play first or only corner outfield are like few and far between. But I think with JD Martinez, people they ignored the fact that he also slugs like 550 plus, and you have to sort of take that into account too. I think sometimes we concentrate on what players can't do rather than what they can do, and so I think that was where he sort of slipped under the radar. But I think getting athletic, multi-positional guys who can play multiple positions, going forward, stocking up pitching, just building as much depth as you can. I think that's sort of the model. The Tigers can still, spend money on some free agents, maybe not in the next 1 or 2 years, but once they sort of rebuild that system, and then you can start to add after that. So I don't think it's going to be a super long turnaround. I guess the Miguel Cabrera contract is still going to be a problem. And you he's one of my favorite hitters to watch in baseball. So it's hard for me to watch this year because he's been so hurt. But I think if he's healthy, he provides another weapon as well. But I don't know. I just think they're doing it the right way this year. How they were sort of able to reset with all these trades. I mean, it doesn't look good on the field at the moment right now, but I think for the long term, it was probably the right move for them to do.
Yeah, you got to sacrifice winning at the major league level for a little bit. I think the next 2 years at least, if not 3, maybe 4, worst case scenario, to build up that farm system to the caliber of a Dodgers farm system. And I would right now, looking at the Dodgers, I know how bad they've been of late, losing 11 straight and whatnot, but I would still much rather be the Dodgers than the Detroit Tigers, and watching the Tigers having lost 9 of their last 11 and look as lackluster as they have this season.
Yeah, and I think too, and watching, and plus having to watch the Indians, who seemingly can't lose. They're the opposite of the Dodgers right now. They've won 19 straight. It has to be disconcerting as well. But I think too with the Dodgers, as bad as they're going, I mean, they are they are pretty well set up for the next few years here. Not only at the major league level, they have almost everyone coming back next year. I mean, there's a few guys. Logan Forsythe has an option, so maybe not him. Andre Steer's going to be a free agent. He wasn't a factor this year. So they still have the strong farm system. Next year is going to be pretty much the same team. So I think they're looking pretty good in the short term and long term. So overall, pretty happy with the sort of the direction of the franchise. And look, like I said, this is all perspective. They still have the best record in baseball, which, as fleeting as it sounds, because they might not have it by the weekend, but this has been a super bizarre season. But I think no matter how it ends, it's going to be. We haven't really seen anything like this. Like they won 11 straight and 10 straight earlier in the year. Now they've lost 11. So I think they're the only team to lose 15 out of 16 and win 15 out of 16 or something like that. So it's been I can't really describe it, but that said, as bad as they're playing now, they're pretty well set up for the next 5 years or so.
Must be great to have that feeling and to know that fact when you're watching the Dodgers. And you know what? As you know, Eric, too, they have a little bit more regular season play left. So if they get hot right before October, well, it's about who's hot at that time, right? When you get into October. So maybe the Dodgers regain their ways of the past when they were this highly relevant ball club, and they start just mashing the heck out of the baseball again and pitching very darn well, which they showed in the first half, all first half long, that they could do that and win a lot more than they were losing. So I'll give you that much and leave you, Eric, with that as well. Thanks for joining me on this week's edition of Tigers Talk, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for having me, Vito.
And that was Mr. Eric Steven of the LA Dodgers SB Nation blog, True Blue LA. Always a pleasure having him join me. It's been a while since I had him last on my show. At that point when I last had him on, it was an internet radio show. This, I would like to say, has run a little bit more smoothly and professionally because of my co-host and podcast producer as well, the extraordinary Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Macaroon. And John is always alongside me as my sidekick for every single edition of Tigers Talk, every single episode of Too Bad Hombres and Tigers Talk. And I guess we have one little thing I wanted to bring up to you, a little trivia. Now, this happened on September 9th of 1977, Doc. What was the significant moment in Tigers history that happened on that very date in Tigers history? And it's something involving two legendary Tigers names, too. I'll just say that much.
Vito, you stumped me. I have no clue. I'm still riveted by some previous conversations we've had, and I have no clue. Fill me in.
It was a debut of Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker. How about that? They debuted together September 9th, 1977 at Fenway Park. So pretty interesting fact there. I stumped the Doc again. I think I do that every single time I bring up a trivia question. And I hope maybe I stumped some of you and that you enjoyed that conversation I had with Eric Steven of the SB Nation blog, True Blue LA, once again, and enjoyed my little convo earlier in the podcast with the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Macaroon. Thank you much for listening, and tune in for next week's edition as well, dropping next Wednesday. Adios for now.